Thank you. And I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the August 8th, 2023 open public meeting of the Needham Library Board of Trustees, being held via hybrid format, allowing remote attendance. First, a roll call to confirm that trustees, library staff, and persons anticipated to be on the agenda are present and can hear me. When I say your name, let us know you're here. Trustees Anna Geraldo Kerr.
Here.
Rob Pettit, we understand may not be able to join us. He's had some flooding in his house, and so we sympathize with him. Kay Cahill.
Here.
Erhard Grafe.
Here.
Michael O'Neill, also sorry to say, can't be here with us tonight. He has a family member in the hospital who he's taken care of. So our thoughts are with him. Megan Small.
Here.
And me, Jay Fialka, obviously here. Library staff, Director Kim Hewitt.
Here.
Assistant Director Dmitry Kyriakis.
Here.
I understand technology specialist Danielle Kawa is not here with us tonight. And Gail and Bennett also not here with us tonight. Recording Secretary Faith Frisley
Here.
is here. Anyone here for the Library Foundation? I don't see you in person. Not tonight.
Joan said she was not going to be able to make it.
Okay, so oh, I'm sorry, Jenna White. Hello to you, and you're here.
Here, yep.
Okay, thank you. This meeting is being recorded. If there's a problem that prevents the completion of this meeting, we will reconvene at 7 p.m. on September 12th, 2023. And so I hereby call this meeting of the Needham Board of Library Trustees to order at 7:05 p.m. Public comments. Are there any members of the public who would like to offer any comments for us to consider? Okay, thank you. I'd like to then start by requesting a motion to approve the minutes of the July 10th, 2023 meeting. And we can discuss then. Anyone make a motion to approve those minutes?
I'm not sure we got. No, you did get the minutes, but
In the
that's
most
not
recent.
the consent order. Oh.
New
That's
business
what we're-
before we
yeah,
go?
yeah.
Okay,
That's what
fair
we're
enough.
doing.
I thought usually we start with the minutes, but
Oh.
we'll then, if you don't mind then, I do have some comments before we get into new business. We all know, and I'm speaking on behalf of the trustees and also myself, but we all know there's been some big news since our last meeting. Library Director Kim Hewitt will be leaving us to take advantage of another opportunity. On behalf of the trustees, I want to wish Kim well and thank her for her valuable contributions as a transitional leader for our library. We should acknowledge Kim worked hard and with her outstanding team accomplished much over the last 2 years. Among those accomplishments, Kim led efforts to launch several new collections, including video games, graphic novels, our Library of Things, and we expanded the library's world languages section. Kim spearheaded the library's ongoing DEI efforts, including a DEI audit of the library's print collection. Kim worked closely with the trustees to craft a thoughtful strategic plan that will help guide us over the next 5 years. And she contributed to the early stages of a space planning review that we expect will benefit the library down the line. So I'm glad to say our library is well positioned to build on Kim's and our efforts. We will talk more this evening about next steps to arrange for a beneficial leadership transition. But for now, I want to offer Kim our sincere thanks and my personal appreciation for your service to the library. And I don't know if anyone else wants to offer any comments. We have an action-packed agenda, so if you do want to offer comments, you should probably make them brief. But if anybody else wants to say anything, maybe I'm happy to allow that. Okay,
Well, as you said, Jay, I want to thank Kim for all the innovations that she came into a challenging situation following a long time director and stood up and took a lot of initiative to I didn't prepare any remarks, so, but a lot of creative initiatives, and we thank her for that.
Anna, yes.
In the interest of time, thank you and good luck. Seconded.
Okay, so very good. So then let's now follow the agenda. And we have new business, and we have guests here, Kate, Dave, and Katie on behalf of the town to talk to us, I suppose, about a variety of things, whatever they were at what point originally planning to talk to us about, along with getting the conversation started about the leadership transition process. So welcome, thank you, and I give you the floor.
Thank you for inviting us. I can probably be very brief about what we're planning to do over the coming year. Most of it involves recruiting and retaining staff at all levels of the organization in new and creative ways. So that's a priority of ours. We talk about it every single meeting that we have. We have a lot of mission critical positions vacant, and as do virtually all cities and towns and almost all organizations, right?
So we can relate.
Yeah, so that's what we'll be working on. We sort of following in the footsteps of the library trustees, the select board brought in a facilitator last week to help it think strategically about its goals and objectives, and also to help craft a vision statement for the board's view of the town. Really a reset. We have a very new board on the select board, and I thought that was a great process. We did quite a bit of work like the trustees did. Have a lot of goals, but trying to prioritize them, and some of them will be done in the next year. Some might be done in 2 years, but recognizing that a lot of them are a 5-year window. We didn't explicitly say 5. I think when you did that was very nice. So that was good. Our goal is to be looking at areas like making sure Needham is livable, it's safe, it's connected, and that people have a place to live in all types and varieties, and that we're sustainable and responsibly governed. So those are the framework in which we set the goals, and then the objectives will come in under that. But I would say our year is going to be characterized by climate, housing, and transportation. After we have hired the staff to do all those things. So we have a lot of housing initiatives in the works, a very big project, which is called the DHED or MBTA Communities Housing, which we're developing in accordance with the state regulation. That's going to require a robust public process between now and essentially October.
Where would that housing be?
That's exactly the question. There are requirements in terms of distance from transit. So the housing working group that created the amazing housing plan, if you haven't read it, it's excellent, it's online, is really looking at the spine that runs from Needham Junction to the highway, or to Needham Heights, to the height. Yeah. So that's basically that's the area where we are required to create hundreds, high hundreds, required to zone for them. So that's a big project, and there are a lot of other priorities in the housing plan that we're trying to look and move forward to. Very much mindful of the fact that buying a single family home in Needham is unaffordable for very many people, and that we want a community of people of all means. So housing is high. Climate, it's huge. I mean, this freak rainstorm with the 3 inches of rain in an hour and a half, I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
Everybody, whoever they were, just standing watching.
My wife told me to panic. It was crazy what she saw.
Yeah. So, we have a lot of, the select board actually adopted a goal to combat the climate crisis. And we had quite a lot of discussion about whether
Lead the charge.
that's a goal is that a word that should be in the goal? And I said, well, they went back and forth and we said, well, if you say combat, we know what you mean, right? So when we bring something in, we're going to have clubs So we have
And an umbrella.
and an umbrella and sunscreen. The Climate Action Planning Committee has done amazing work. It's amazing people. They brought together, like the housing work group, they brought together a lot of citizen volunteers who
Is this
really
what Bob is
care.
part of on our behalf?
Robert, he might have been on one of the
Robert, you're helping
subcommittees.
with displays on it.
Yeah.
Yes,
Brilliantly, they created a lot of subcommittees
Yeah,
and they're putting that together. So they're working on completing a climate action plan that we will be implementing starting, I think the plan will be done by the end of the year. We at town meeting, we approved the program where the town will do electricity aggregation where residential and small businesses can benefit by having an aggregated rate. We started that process. We kicked it off last month. It's a long process. They go through state approval, but that's going out there. And then there'll be, the board did ask that we work towards getting the, what's it called, opt-in,
Specialized opt-in energy code.
which is essentially a net zero energy code, which is a higher level of code. The sense of urgency being, if we're gonna build buildings that are gonna last for 50 years, we need to get that in motion. So there's a lot
did
of,
you read about that big development in Newton and the way they're
yes.
doing something
yes.
that's brand new?
Yes, and Newton has adopted this code,
Yeah.
their city council, and so there's a sense of urgency that we don't want to build, for instance, something massive at the Muzzy site and not have
Mhm.
visit plates. So those are two very big lifts. The select board also created a mobility committee to consider the creation of a transportation plan that would be for pedestrians, bikers, and motorists. There's a lot of interest in that, particularly in Needham Center. So we'll be looking at Needham Center. I'll wrap up, but Needham Center is a perfect example of the committee was meeting in the early teens. In 2017, the project was done, and now the next phase, nobody wants it because goals are just, they don't last that long, right? So we're gonna reset what people are looking for. They want wider sidewalks, they want protected bike lanes, they want to be able to engage. And the old study had a clear mission to get traffic through faster. So we need to do both of those things, which is harder, but we'll make that work. And then we have a lot of development going on, a lot of public works projects, major public works projects, and as you know, our Emmett Grover
Yeah.
project that Hank is ably overseeing. And projects like the one that you're gonna be talking about. Dave, did you have anything to add or answer questions?
I'll just take the questions when it's appropriate.
I have one question when you're ready. So, just in terms of the library being on the transportation spine from between the Heights and the junction, I would, I would hope that somehow that the library could be, somehow factored in. I think our historic facade is a beautiful thing, but it's also, perhaps we could incorporate ways to highlight the fact that the library is an important stop on the transportation spine. So,
I believe that.
yeah. You know that.
Yes, Anna?
So along those lines about the library, how this net zero energy code you mentioned, my understanding is that will be applied to new buildings, right? Is that what? How would current buildings, is there anything that is being considered for net zero, some kind of net zero?
You're the expert now.
Particularly the library, of course.
So Needham had already adopted the stretch energy code in 2019. And one of the changes that happened when the state just created this specialized opt-in code, which we're going to be discussing for new construction, is they updated the stretch code. And so communities who had already adopted the older version, the newer version automatically went into effect for those communities. So that updated stretch code is in effect in town in Needham now. It applies to existing construction if you trigger renovations or additions that are a certain size or a certain percentage of your footprint. So it really gets into the weeds, but that's like the gist of the answer.
So
Yeah.
there's a connection with what we're going to discuss, perhaps. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, do we want to then now shift the conversation to the next steps as far as the leadership transition? I don't know, Katie, is that, you want to talk about that?
Yes, I
Uh,
have the bittersweet job
Okay, thank you.
of walking us through this. So, yes, as Jay, you mentioned, I know the trustees are aware, but for the public, Kim has officially submitted her letter of resignation. So her last day will be September 1st. I will save all of my very, very positive things to say for another day, but I will just say, you know, Kim's involved in a lot of townwide leadership meetings and collaboration with colleagues that the public and the library doesn't see, but that's the part that I get to see a lot, and she's really going to be a missed presence in that group.
I'll second.
So Kim Dimitri and I will be working very closely to support the staff and all of you through the transition, but to kick that off, I did want to walk through what's in your packet for the recruitment plan and hiring process and the job description, just to zoom out a little bit, particularly because we have new members who weren't here when we went through this in 2021. Under the town charter, the town manager appoints the library director with a vote of approval from this board. And so again, bittersweet, because we went through this in 2021, we as a group did a lot of work, and I'll give Kate and Dave the credit on the staff side because I wasn't overseeing the library then, to create a recruitment and hiring plan that was kind of joint with the trustees and town management. So I will walk through what's before you and just say that it really mirrors almost exactly the template that we had created before. And I think it worked really well, and I heard some positive feedback. I will also put an asterisk to say this timeline is illustrative, but it could shift. So if, for example, we get the job posting finalized sooner, I'm not going to wait to post it, I'll get it up. And so then the timeline will shift and I'll update it accordingly. So to walk through the hiring timeline, this week really is to have this discussion and get our internal paperwork done. We can actually check that off. The C1's been approved, so we're ahead of schedule. And finalize the job posting and job description. I have built in here to post for 4 weeks. Sometimes we do 3 weeks. This is really, August is a tough month. So happy to get feedback on that, though, if people have strong opinions. And then we build in a week just to screen the candidates. This is something we tend to do, staff with HR, to kind of see what applicants actually meet the minimum requirements and then be able to advance forward candidates that we want to consider in round 1. I will get into the details of rounds 1, 2, and 3, but we're trying to do them back-to-back weeks. So we really keep the candidates, once they've heard from us, they move along and they hear from us every week and they know that the process is moving. Then, of course, make a decision, reference checks. We will need at some point, it might not be that week listed, but a special meeting of the trustees to vote on the recommended candidate. And then we will, hoping that the person accepts the job, we will button up all the details to get somebody on board, hopefully early December is the goal. I do want to just flip to the next page, the back page that talks about the interview panels and formats. So for all of the rounds, you will see that it lists 2 to 3 library trustees. If there are 4 trustees in an interview, that triggers a quorum and thus open meeting law. I think we heard from the board last time around that all members wanted to play a role in the hiring process. And so we were able to do that by having 2 or 3 members sit in on each round. And myself and the HR representative will really be kind of the through line and the glue to get the feedback from all of the participants from each interview panel and across all rounds, to be able to reflect back and synthesize what we're hearing back about the various candidates.
My understanding from Rob Pettit was that his memory was that last time around, the chair and vice chair participated in the earliest round of the review, and that for subsequent rounds, opportunities were for other trustees to participate, and that all the trustees had an opportunity to meet in person, the finalists, just in terms of, tracking ahead. That was my memory. That was, I think, a social of some sort at which the two finalists attend. Does that not ring a bell with you?
No, we just had,
That's what Rob told me, and I thought that
I
did ring a
remember it
bell.
differently too.
Okay,
So just my memory is that we set a group of three trustees, of which I was one.
you
And
were the chair, right?
No, I wasn't chair at that time. It was just a selected group.
Rob.
Rob
Okay,
and I don't know, I can't remember.
No, I
who the
wasn't.
first one was. But anyway, it was just a
Okay.
panel of three trustees who were interested and worked with the town managers and with the HR to talk about getting the process rolling. And then there was this process of including 2 to 3 trustees in each.
Got it.
round of interviews.
okay.
So
We all thought it was an efficient and effective process, right?
great. Yeah, I think, it gives every trustee an opportunity to be in a round, and so you all will have met the final candidate, right, at some point, it just depends what part of the process.
Yeah,
And,
So we, just to address that question of the last time we set up this 3-person committee. So I don't know if we want to do that this time or not, but that is what the way it was handled last time.
yeah, in my mind, the creation of this kind of process was the outcome of that committee, so I think we're really have set ourselves up for success to just.
but that says 2
Roll
to
ahead.
3, and then the question becomes, how do you identify them? It was straightforward if, as I thought, as Rob suggested, that it would be the chair and the vice chair, because then, it is what it is. But now I'm happy to consider comments from other trustees if they have any thoughts about that, if that's something you think we need to determine at this time, the 2 versus 3.
I mean, I'm happy to email out and have folks tell me either if they have a preference about which round or if they have a week that they're just not available, because it may be a scheduling issue as well.
Okay,
So I can synthesize that and see where it lands.
Okay.
If that works.
so then
for
why
everyone.
don't we do that?
So that sounds good, it sounds fine. I just was wondering, would the trustees, would we be able to see the candidates, the list of candidates? That I think is fairly and reviewed list, which is what this 3-person committee did last time, is that
You
they.
mean you want all the trustees to review all of the initial
No,
candidates?
after the screening that you described, to make sure people who had meet the requirements of the job, then the trustees were able to see all the candidates. So,
You mean their materials?
Yeah. yeah, the resume.
Okay, just so that I'm clear, including the ones we weeded out, because otherwise the ones,
No.
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 right, okay, so,
Yeah, after
so that
the
would
meeting.
just be everyone who goes forward to round 1.
Yes.
Okay,
So that was,
so
it was helpful for us to be
That's a
able to
wide
see
group.
who the candidates.
Yeah,
were.
there's confidentiality there. Let's talk about,
Yeah, I think it was just
as a wider group.
3-person panel, right? That's.
I mean, the chair and the vice chair.
well,
Well,
or they will go, obviously, those applications will go to the 2 to 3 trustees who are on round 1.
Yeah.
So that would kind of be the role of those 3, the 2 or 3 in round 2 have a little bit of a different role.
Okay, so.
So I think
we would
if
like to
somebody
see
felt
the
really strongly about seeing the initial pool, you should give me feedback when I email you that you'd prefer to be in round 1. Or somebody else might want to definitely be in round 3.
And round
Yes.
1 only can be up to 3 people.
I mean, I would like to see the pool.
Great, so I'll send that email out and then folks can give me their preferences and I'll try to puzzle piece it together. Great. Any other questions just in terms of the formats for the interviews?
Can I just say one thing before the formats? I do remember that we gave some special attention the last round in terms of outreach to where we would advertise the position in order to seek as diverse an applicant pool as possible. And I just want to make sure we remind ourselves, whatever those efforts were the last time, are probably efforts we would want to pursue again this time.
That's great. I can pull a list of what we did.
And, oh, go ahead.
You're going to talk about the job description?
No, I was just talking about the pool
Okay, go ahead.
of candidates. So last time I guess my question is, if we hear of candidates ourselves through our networks and, personal networking, should we contact you, Katie, or what would be the process?
Sure, as soon as the posting goes up, I'll send a link out to everyone. And so if you can just encourage folks to just submit right to that application link, then we know they're all getting funneled into our centralized system. That would be great.
And I don't recall the job description. It's been a little while. So I'm just want to make sure that because our reporting structure for the director is not what usually is for other libraries, that other libraries, the director reports to the trustees, and not in our case, of course, so that is explicitly is clearly, it is, okay. And
So
but yet, I would like to make it a very explicit, what are the roles? So when they report to the deputy town manager, and what is our role? So how will the director work with the trustees? So that is very, very clear.
I think what'll happen as a practical matter, because we don't want to wait until after the next trustees meeting to have the job description is that Rob and I will work, chair and vice chair will work with Katie to come up with a revised job description.
We have there is a job description for the position. It's approved by the personnel board. This is a document that's, been done. We had a robust update of it, just 2 years ago.
But we should at least take a quick look to see if there's any small changes we want to make that would reflect anything that we might have learned, how complicated or difficult would it be to make some minor changes to that?
It depends on the amount of changes, whether you'd have to have another meeting and I don't want to get your
So I'm
schedule.
trying to understand.
But I think there are other ways other than the official job description of the town or the
Yeah.
posting, where you
You
can
can
set
say,
forth
yeah.
expectations on how you want to work together. And I know you've been working on that in your retreats and your strategic plan.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that the job description, which is really the legal document that says you have to be able to perform these, you have to have this education, is where people are going to go back and say, how are we working together?
I don't question that. I would have thought that we could just take a fresh look at it and see if we think it could be improved, but if that's impractical under the circumstances.
Could we at least look at it?
I think it's in your
Because we have
packet.
it.
We have it.
Okay, write it out.
I did do it today, and I felt like the description of the work with how the director works with the trustees was a little scattered and could be organized a little better.
To your point, Kate, about other ways, I would then strongly suggest that the interview questions that address that very clearly, so that the applicants are very aware of the dynamic and there are no misinterpretations down the road.
Okay,
Agree. Can I say as an applicant, the job description matters very little. Kind of going in what the director position entails, and then the interview questions like you're saying are like the perfect way to get at those things. I wouldn't necessarily see that written in here, right? Especially as you're still working out what are the roles and how do we do them.
I'm comfortable with that. I just, okay.
Great. So I guess, that really does put us on track. So because all of this work had been done, I'd say I can plan to post on Monday. So if there's any other comments to leave this meeting, and you say, you want to reach out. But otherwise I will finalize this and get it posted so we can get going.
Okay.
One last question. In the knock on wood, that we don't find the applicant in the time frame, that do you just repeat the process or extend the process?
Yeah,
I'm
that's a
knocking on
great-
wood. I hope-
It's a really good question in this labor market.
I know, that's exactly.
So I will be monitoring applications as they come in, both in terms of the number and applicability. And usually we tend to make a decision as we get into week 3 or 4 about if we want to extend the date. So if that's the case and we really feel like, that we can't conclude with the pool that we have, I'll be in touch and
Okay,
we'll
so
update the
you're-
timeline. Yeah.
Have we checked our package to see if it's competitive with other areas as well? Like, has there been a salary review or anything like that?
Yeah, that's a great question too. We did a compensation and classification study in 2020. The whole world changed, but it changed for everyone. So I'd say we do regularly look at peer communities. And the other big shift we've done is a lot of more proactive messaging, both in the job posting, but throughout the process about benefits. And in that way, Needham, particularly amongst other municipalities, I think is very competitive in terms of, time off but even non-financial components, remote work, flex time, things that we have levers, even when sometimes we don't have money.
Cool. One other question, do we have, and again, forgive me, I forgot the process, part of the process, it's a little blurry. But is there a list of questions that you will be circulating, or how do we, for the question about, responsibilities and clarity on that, the questions about expectations, why we would like somebody to be here for a longer, kind of setting expectations from the beginning, just to try to be as transparent as possible.
Yeah.
So what, do we have a list of questions that we're going to be looking at?
So I'll put together a draft list for each round and I'll send it to the interview panels and see if anyone has any edits or additions, free. So if you're on round one, you'll get the list. Yeah.
Okay.
Great. So we'll
Anything
get
else?
going.
So then we'll get moving. Yep, very good. Then next on the agenda, we have looking forward to our space planning presentation. Brett, thank you for joining us again, and maybe give us bring us up to speed in terms of where we are and what we're looking at.
Absolutely. Let me get this queued up here.
Oh, yeah, so we'll.
He could weigh in.
Yeah.
He would have been able to.
Yeah, I didn't see.
Okay, great. Well, good evening, everybody.
Hello.
Thanks for having me here tonight. Just a reminder, my name is Brett Benson. I'm a principal at UTL. We were hired to do the space planning study for the town and for the library, and very happy to report that we're close to the end of this first phase of what will be a longer process as you dig into the details of rethinking how the library works. This is our agenda tonight. It should be relatively brief. This should be kind of a summation of where we are, ending at where all things end, how much it's going to cost, and then which is also where all things begin, right? Just to kind of review the process and who we've worked with and who we are, there's three of us on our side at UTL. We are architects and planners. I'm here tonight. Marissa and Claudia have done, honestly, the bulk of the work, and I'm just the spokesperson for all of you tonight. They are having a night off. We've worked very closely with Hank and with Kim and Dimitri, of course, and Erhard as a trustee representative on this study, and deeply thankful for all of their input and guidance on this process. I wanted to just remind everybody of our goals for this study, something that we've been starting to call a framework study, because it really is a framework for thinking about how the library can change over time. And the first one is that, we really wanted to identify some of the constraints and the opportunities in how the library is used. It's been 17 years since the library was rebuilt, which is, I like to say, a short time in the life of the building, but a long time in the life of the people that are using it. And really, the expectations of what people want from a library have changed quite radically. The second goal was to engage with residents of Needham, with patrons of the library, with staff, the trustees, friends of the library, representatives of the foundation, and all the other interested stakeholders, of which there are many, just to hear really directly what the library does well and what can be improved. And then finally, to help develop and then refine this framework to improve how the library is laid out, really to meet the needs of the library over the next many years. We've had a number of meetings. This is our fourth meeting with all of you tonight, or actually our third in person. We've received feedback starting in April from all of you, from Earhart and Ken, and tonight we're meeting with you. We'll have our third meeting with the PPBC next Monday. We've had very continuous feedback from all the library staff throughout this study. And we've had both direct engagement with library patrons through tours, through Zoom calls with kids, but also through an online survey. All of that is going to be summarized in a final report that we're going to issue in draft format later this month. I'm not going to go through all of that tonight. I just want to kind of cut to the chase with all of you here. So this is our timeline. We're here in August. We have our meeting tonight on the 8th, and again, the PPBC on the 14th. And we're using this month of August to finalize the report, to summarize everything that we've done so far. There were 4 priorities that you all identified for us coming out of the last meeting that we wanted to focus on with this space plan. The first one was creating a new dedicated teen and tween area in the library. The second was improving the children's area. Third were improvements to the Rosemary entrance and creating a new multi-purpose room. And then the last one was improving the Highland entrance. And I'm going to go through all 4 of these. And then at the end, our cost estimator has looked at them and created some cost assignments for each. This is kind of the big picture of how the library is used right now. On the left-hand side, you see the first floor, so the community room where we would have been tonight if not for the freakish rainstorm. In blue, the general collection, also known as the adult collection throughout the library, that is both on the first and the second floor. In yellow on the children's, or on the first floor is the children's area. And then on the second floor in the upper left corner, the teens area or young adult area. You can see how little of the space is actually allocated. If we did a second drawing, you would see the actual space occupied by the teens and it would be much larger than what we're showing in this plan. And what we're proposing here is, coming out of your feedback, is these 4 projects that we've highlighted. 2 on the first floor, 2 on the second floor. And I'll go in order. Number 1, again, is that teen and tween area. Really trying to expand and meet the need of the library. Number 2, working within the footprint of the existing children's area, making improvements to there. Third is looking at the Rosemary entrance and creating that new multi-purpose room. And then 4th, reorganizing what we call the Highland entrance, but really it's kind of beyond the historic building and into that entrance on the second floor. I was hoping to get a little bit more planned. So I'm going to just walk you very quickly through the teen and tween area of where we landed. And first off is to create an enclosure around the teen and tween zone that extends from the staircase down to the first floor, out to the mural space, and then from that point over to the street. This space will be enclosed by what we're proposing to be glass partitions so that you maintain that beautiful sense of natural light and openness that is so characteristic of the library and makes it so beautiful, but also provides a measure of acoustic separation, which is badly needed in the library, both so that the teens and tweens who are occupying that space feel comfortable in the library and feel like it's a space that's welcoming to them, but also so that other patrons aren't bothered by the teens and tweens throughout the space. We're also proposing to remove the existing glass partition that separates off the current young adult area from the rest of that space so that there's a little more breathing room in there, as well as all of the shelving and millwork that's in there as well. It's a beautiful design, but functionally it really has reduced the amount of space available to almost nothing, just essentially a single table in one room. Coupled with that are improvements to the HVAC system that we've looked at with our engineer and that we've been working with the town on really trying to figure out exactly what bucket of money that's going to come out to. And Hank can probably speak to more of that, I hope, if you have questions about it. And overall, we're really trying to right size this space to the demand that's in there. I talked about the acoustic impacts and the HVAC. The other component that we're really trying to work with is the existing infrastructure that's here in the library. So thinking about electrical floor boxes and that sort of thing, so that we're trying to manage costs. We don't want to, just tear everything out if we can maintain as much as possible. We know that cost is a big concern.
You have a question, Kate?
About the team space.
Yeah.
So the one change from the last time you presented the plan that I'm seeing is that the team space has been widened to the point where it's the wall, the dividing glass partition is up against the stairway.
Yes.
And so that means, so that removes the passage area. And then the only way to then access the adult space back there with the stacks and the tables is now a pretty narrow corridor along the art gallery.
On gallery wall,
Wall.
right?
So I'm just wondering, is there, that looks a little difficult in terms of passive people being able to pass through the library.
I think it's a very fair comment. Probably a lot of my answers to your questions tonight are going to sound the same, which is this is just a framework and that there's a lot more design to be done in the future. And thinking about the kind of fine grain of traffic patterns and that sort of thing are going to be really important as the design develops. We really wanted to, in terms of this report, develop what is approximately the right size and approximately how much is that going to cost in the context of that siding. So there are, that question and many, many others that we'll have to answer as the design progresses. All right, I'll move on to the children's area. So our goals in the children's area were really, number one, to improve sight lines throughout that space. Where the reference desk is now, it's kind of tucked into a nook. Additionally, the guardrail that separates the higher basement of the historic building from the newer children's area provides a visual barrier. So we want to lower that so that there's better sight lines. We really want to create program areas and furnishings that reflect the way that the space is used now, including new flooring in this area, flooring that is both soft and welcoming to kids users, but also in other areas, especially the play area, something that is very easy to clean and maintain. And so that is included in the cost estimate as part of this project. And also new lighting in that space, really something that that reflects how the space is being used, and also the vast improvements in energy efficiency, kind of going back to some of the climate concerns that we were talking about earlier, that can improve the performance of this library. So the third space here is looking at the Rosemary entrance, and it's a little bit of a misnomer. We don't actually have any scope related to the actual entrance off of the Rosemary parking lot. We are looking very closely at the circulation desk and wanting to improve sight lines throughout the space, as well as when you walk in the front door and making eye contact with librarians. We think that's really important.
Do you mind moving the where the folks are so they can see?
Oh, yeah, maybe.
That's too
Dimitri, you could
I don't know
do
if you can do that.
You can just minimize it.
Yeah, or minimize it, yeah, whichever.
Yeah.
Just so that,
You can get rid of it.
there you
that. There, that's better.
go. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Dimitri. I'll do the same thing on mine. So from the circulation desk, having that eye contact when you walk in the front door, and also, moving that circulation desk allows us to create a program that doesn't exist in the library right now, which is this multi-purpose room. See that here, which will unlock a whole series of programs that the library has not been able to offer because of the space constraint. So that was something that was really powerful throughout our engagement, both with the staff and with the patrons, in terms of a desire. And then lastly, the Highland entrance improvements, moving that reference desk out, tucked away from behind the column in the way that it is now and out into a more central area, creating more room in the reference workroom for staff space to work, and then reorganizing the seating and the shelving in the world languages area that will tie into the improvements to the teen and tween area as well. Just a kind of snapshot of this study of what we're proposing. So we've increased the seat count by 16%, while maintaining basically the collection count as is. We're down one 3-foot shelf throughout. And we've done that both by densifying in some areas, consolidating some of the services, and really trying to find spaces that are underutilized now and create more flexible, more useful spaces out of them. And so I think that that has been, this has been a metric that's floated up and down as we've kind of checked in with you. So I think we've landed in a good place.
Were you disappointed that you were one shelf shy?
I know, I didn't don't say the team, one shelf, someone one shelf, but we're close. So the last part here I want to talk about is the cost estimate. So we have professional cost estimators on our team. We prepared a series of drawings for them that they use to generate a cost estimate. All of these costs are expressed in today's dollars, and then we escalate them a certain percentage based on every year. So what I'll show you on the next page, and I'm going to explain what some of these things are. There's what we call the hard costs. This is the actual construction cost, what we would expect a bid to come in and add from a general contractor if it went out to bid today. There's the escalation that I was talking about. We can have greater certainty from now until 2024, and then a lot less certainty after that. Essentially, it's a 12% escalation carried through 2024, and then I kind of throw a dart at the dartboard at 6% beyond that. What we've talked about as a group in terms of timing is that the first project would happen summer 2025, children's room summer 2026, and year after as it follows. All of these are considered to be quote unquote summer slammers, one that works in conjunction with the school schedule, so that maybe you can think about using school space as swing areas for the collection. That is certainly something that will need to have a lot more coordination as this design and project progresses. Then there are the soft costs, and so those kind of start to add up. The first one is contingency for any unforeseen conditions. This is a renovation, and while it's a relatively new building, there are still lots of hidden things behind walls that cost money that nobody knows about until you find it hidden behind the wall. There is furniture that we've allocated based on our kind of knowledge of libraries and where we've been doing furniture bids recently. Certainly, there are opportunities for reducing that cost if furniture is going to be reused. I think that would be part of the next step, is identifying what that furniture is. There's equipment such as TV monitors and the like. There are moving costs associated with moving the collection out so that the construction space can be partitioned off. Any temporary facility costs, if town spaces aren't available or depending on how that cost is allocated. And then there are professional service fees. You do have to pay your architects and your engineers. I'm sorry to report. So, Hank, I don't know if you want to say anything as I flash these numbers up on the screen. I didn't give you a chance to say anything.
Yeah, I mean, there was a much more detailed cost estimate that they shared with us. It was really, however, on a square foot basis. So when we get into schematic design details or design development or even construction documents, there would be a more detailed cost estimate on each piece. And we would be looking, for instance, at both the new construction, but also we would have to include all the demolition associated with that. On these costs, if everything were lumped into 1 year, then some of the contingencies obviously would go down, and some of the general contractor general requirements costs might go down. But I think it's unrealistic to assume that we could do that or fund that, and so hence the 4 phases. That means that each time we would have to go out to public bid. There could be a different contractor for each phase. Those are unknowns at this point.
So I will kind of let you absorb these numbers on the screen and try not to talk too much over it, but I'll explain how this table is laid out. So we have each of the 4 categories, 4 projects. We've listed the square footage underneath each one of these. And this first line would be the construction cost. Assuming that it went out to, we started design right away, it went out to bid at the end of next year. All of these are quoted at those costs. So we would expect the contractor to come back, for example, in the teen and tween area with a bid of $1.7 million. That's a round number. It's an estimate. There are many things that we don't know right now. There's a very large contingency built in above that line with our cost estimator, just because, you know, this has been a couple of months study and there's a lot more work to be done. And then everything below this line are the soft costs. So those start to add up, including the contingency for those conditions, the unforeseen conditions that the town reserves for potential change orders, the cost of furniture, the cost of equipment. We've included the cost of escalation. So using the teen and tween as project number one, there is no additional escalation included in that number. But then you can see we start to go out in the years forward each year. There are moving costs, which we've controlled as just a number of $15,000 for now. That's something that would require additional research. We have not included any temporary facility costs at this moment. That requires more discussion as well. And then in consultation with the town, we've held 20% of that cost for professional service fees. And also those escalate over time as well. So you can see that the cost roughly tracks with the square footage. If you were to do the calculation of dividing the total project cost by the square footage, these numbers wouldn't exactly align. Some of these projects are more in-depth and intensive than others. And certainly escalation starts to kick in more heavily in some of these later projects. So I'm going to pause there. This is the last slide I have to present to all of you. Actually, that's not true. I have this slide to present, which is to remind all of you where we are going. So again, August is our month for creating this final report. There will be many appendices in the report that includes a detailed cost estimate where everything is down to the dollar. It looks very precise. When you look at that, please keep in your head that it's not precise at all. We're still very early in the process. We'll also include all of the survey results that we've had, all of the note taking that we've done through all of our meetings, so that there's a very comprehensive document of this process, so that when you do pick it up again, it isn't a mystery. You don't have to search through dozens of emails to create the trail. We really want to have something comprehensive as a document, so that your next designer, whether it's us or somebody else, can pick it up and hit the ground running.
Well, thank you so much for this and for all of your great efforts along the way. You know, for my part, I remember where we started. And I really must thank you and your team, and thank Kim and Earhart also for the role they've played in getting us to this point, and to the trustees and to Hank and all involved. It seems like we identified, you know, some discrete areas where we can make real improvements at, you know, not unreasonable costs. Everything costs money, and the town has lots of obligations all over the place. We know. You know, for my part, I defer to you guys for guidance as to what you think would be the most efficient way to arrange for funding of this, in terms of, you know, take a big shot or more realistically perhaps approach to get funding on. I don't know if you can get funding up front for what would be a series of payments over a period of years. So I think we'll look to you for guidance as to what's practical, you know, for us to accomplish these, you know, what to me seem, you know, artful and thoughtful, you know, proposals. Any other trustees want to offer comments? I do understand also that, you know, we're fortunate that it looks so good, because in order to take advantage of the schedule, Katie, you sent me a note in terms of where we are with the plan and the budget process, so that as a practical matter, in order to move forward in accordance with our desired, you know, time frame, you know, there would not be an opportunity to reconsider this. So maybe you want to just make a, you know, add some information about that, so that we as trustees understand where it's at with that.
Sure. Yeah, I want to just applaud how far.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
That's fine.
Okay.
No, I want to applaud how far this has come, because, you know, with feasibility studies, you really start at what's the need? What can't we do? What does the community want that the space doesn't allow for? And, you know, I watched the recording from your last discussions with UTO and when Stu from PBBC came, and it really is this iterative process where it's like, what's the need? And then you're like, wait, that costs way too much. Okay, now we have to pivot. And so you've done all of that. And UTO has stayed on to do that, which is really helpful. And do you mind going back to the cost slide? You know, now we have like, or I view this as like order of magnitude. Like, this just gives us like a general ballpark of where we are, because we really don't have a design. We have actually no idea what year we're going to be able to build these things, you know, so this, just to put it in that context, is, you know, just we're whittling down, but it's an iterative process. So, you know, the estimated opening dates, they have to peg it to somewhere to give you an estimate. But that is kind of, those dates are outside of the budget process, which, you know, the town manager and Dave is kicking off now. But with Kim's transition, you know, we'll be coming back to you in September to talk about what operating and capital budget requests are going to be recommended to you all to put in for the library for the fiscal year 25 budget process. And those submissions have to get in by October. So we'll be doing some talking on the town side about what's the context of this relative to the CAS study, the DPW facility study, the school master plan, all of those things. So we don't have an answer like this is the year that thing will be funded for this building, but just that's the timeline that we're all trying to navigate. So if we weren't able to get this finalized, we wouldn't even be able to submit anything for October. So that was the kind of the context, but I want to see, Dave, if you want to add anything.
Well, of course, when you talk about affordability, we first need to know what the school department is going to do with its priority of primarily public school.
Right.
And with the Mitchell School, whether or not they're going to be eligible for state assistance. Those are very critical factors that are going to impact our ability to do other projects. So once we get better guidance on that in the coming months, we will be able to start working in when this would be possible. As the trustees may be aware, the Center for the Heights is also going through a similar process, and we are still waiting to see the results of that work as well. And that's going to have to also factor into considerations relative to just getting something into the capital plan. So a discussion will begin. The deadline for submitting something, which if you have a good basis at this point to do that, is due on October 16th. And as Katie was mentioning, just a couple of weeks later is the budget submission deadline for FY25. So it's a very, it seems like it's not that far away. It is coming close. Many people are still in summer mode.
It's only August.
So there's a lot to do in a short period of time.
So I'm a little confused here. I keep hearing that this is a framework and that things will change. I guess I'm not really clear what we're agreeing to in this, or we're being asked to go forward. There's a lot of ifs and all of that. And I get that the project is many years out. You know, for example, I'm struggling with some of the specifics for the children's area, and we can talk about that too. But I'm also getting the sense that specifics aren't really the goal here. So, and maybe my trustees can help me understand too. What is this a placeholder for the budget? Like, what more going forward? Are there limits on this? Like, does this put constraints on what we can do in the future? Because I keep hearing, you know, there's a chance we may not, all these other projects may go, and so then ours might be pushed. And then do we do a new feasibility study because 5 years down the line, everything has changed, or 5 years down the line, we hooray, have won the, Mega Millions and we have $1 billion and can do everything we wanted to, unlikely. So maybe a little more clarity on what the submission for the 16th, which is what I've gathered we want to do for this. Is any other trustees jump in, or if you share my confusion?
Can we make it so we can see Earhart and the others and maybe make sure we have an
Yeah,
opportunity to know if Earhart wants to.
I think we're all kind of like putting it together.
Okay.
Maybe you don't need to share your, maybe you don't need to share your screen anymore.
Okay, just click the talk. There you go.
Yeah. I just wanted to make, I don't know if you heard me, Earhart, but just wanted to make sure you're still here. And I'm not sure if, because you were so directly involved in this process, if you have any thoughts that you want to share about this.
Well, I certainly can't answer Megan's question because that's, we don't know what the future holds with regard to those things. But certainly, as Brett was saying, the framework that we're talking about when it comes to design is that this is a helpful kind of way of understanding where we'd like to go forward with the program for the library. And that likely doesn't need to change too much, even if we move around a year or two, right? As to when these things might play out. Now, if we get, several years down the line where we kind of keep getting bumped out of the queue for public building, we might need to then kind of start over some part of the process when it comes to space planning. I don't know if there's precedent for that or understanding how that might play out. But hopefully what we have here is enough that we could have the town really consider, what are our top priorities and get those kind of somewhere in the queue, and then see what plays out from there.
Can I ask, Kay, one thing? Is this the sort of stuff that would be covered by the town budget as is, or are we talking about the possibility of overrides, or does that relate to this in one way or another?
I wouldn't imagine, I think the phasing is in response to avoiding an override.
Yeah,
I think,
okay.
I think them all together, they're almost the same as the building, 206, right? So.
Oh, is that right?
15? You're getting there.
$3 million from the state.
Yes, right. So,
So that's what I wanted to understand, if that's the right way to be looking at it.
the likelihood is the school project will need an override, and I imagine that would be the reserved override that we would. So, I think what you've done is
We can't piggyback on the school override.
No, they've been waiting for over 15 years, nothing.
Yes, and DPW as well. But I think this is a creative way to
Okay.
start chipping away at the priorities, and we
Okay.
can slide things in when we can. I'm always going to tell you that we've already done the first 4 years of the capital plan, and every year we're adding to the 5th year. You can make your case for getting it
Yeah.
earlier. We'll always consider it. So I think you have something to put in now, if that's what you want to do, and say that this is our game plan. We want to get it in the plan, and then you need to start talking to, the boards that make the decisions on these things, and, getting support for the need. I think that's the campaign.
Okay, Katie,
I just wanted to add concretely to answer Megan's question, because if you don't know the capital budget, it's really confusing.
Yeah.
As being in my 3rd year, I would attest to. So when we say submit, there is proposals that departments have to submit into the town for consideration, but it's design would be the next step for a project, and then on to construction. So when you said, what have we committed to and what haven't we?
Mhm.
And Hank, correct me if you feel differently, but in my mind, when I read this feasibility study, I see that you've chosen 4 lanes and you've picked your which rank order. So
Okay.
you've committed to teen tween,
Okay.
you've committed to children's room, but in terms of, and that you want one to come before the other, if you have to choose.
and these reflect
So-
what the trustees voted
Right.
on in
Yes.
So it's
consultation.
really that.
Okay.
And then if we said, okay, we're gonna submit for design funds for teen tween, because you've chosen that lane and it's your number 1, and you got money for design, then we'd get, Brent or is an equivalent back and say, okay, now we're gonna start designing, where is that wall? What are the shelves?
Got it.
What, and so then you get into that level, and there's a whole community engagement process just around that design.
Okay.
Then the cost estimates get more fine tuned. so that you can apply for construction with a more accurate estimate. But is that,
Exactly,
that's a
yeah.
great
And
question.
so schematic design would be the next step once we got that design funding. Feasibility is a very important first step, and that gave us the priorities. It gave us the framework, as you described it. All of the comments that you're coming up with now, the detailed comments, those should be captured, and then that would be part of the program that we would give back to the designer and say, now take this framework and let's start looking in detail at what the pieces are.
Got it.
Meanwhile, I think that the chiller is already being funded to be replaced. There needs to be upgrades to some of the other mechanical, as I gather. And the air handling units were very early on, had air source, had heat recovery wheels on them. So those probably need to be upgraded or maintained. All of that is in the maintenance budget. So hopefully it'll be more comfortable next summer, because that would be replaced over the coming year. And that's independent. So the only changes that would be done to the HVAC, and this would be those specifically related to that component of the design. And once you put glass around a space, well, then it changes the mechanical systems that have to serve that space.
Thank you both. That's really helpful to
Yeah,
me.
no.
With that in mind, I do have a couple questions about the children's now that I know that I don't have to worry about many of the specifics. If we could go to that slide, it looks like we are excluding the storytime and crafts area, maybe as a strategic way to keep our costs down, as that would increase the square footage. Am I reading that correctly? What happened to the sensory room? Is it not happening anymore?
So we previously discussed that we would be taking that out because we could do a sensory room like this year
Mhm.
in the current story time room. So
Okay,
that is one of our
Got it.
goals.
Yeah.
And that I believe was in my action plan for the year as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah,
okay,
Yeah, and likewise, on the upper floor, if you wanted to modify some of the area in the archives or in the history room, you might be able to put in a larger meeting table in the middle.
Oh, okay.
But those would be furniture changes that you could do on your own.
Yeah. The benefit of adding in the cost of demolishing the wall between Storytime and Crafts doesn't really get us that much when we can happily continue using the community room for that programming.
Got it.
And where sensory room was something that people really wanted and felt there was a need for, that was an easy switch for us to say, okay, we can absolutely just do that. But hopefully with funding from LFN, if anyone from LFN is listening, that would likely be a grant going to them this fall.
Okay.
And the wellness room would be an addition
Yeah,
as part of
yes.
that.
Yeah, that's a great addition. I think it's a good place to have, if we're gonna continue to have more infant programming, which I know we've added, which is wonderful. It just seemed a little more cosmetic in the children's area, which is fine. I agree the cosmetics are needed. Just wanted to understand more what the costs were coming, and I ran the numbers, and the numbers for the children's area per square foot are lower than some of the other areas. So even though it looks higher, it's the biggest space, but the cost per space is lower. I personally would probably want a higher investment, but that would have also involved moving it to a space, and we're not in that budget area. So that's helpful for me to understand over here, and I will ignore my questions about furniture because we're not at that place yet. So thanks for the clarification.
In terms of cosmetic too, I just want to say like moving the desk is a really big functional
Mhm.
change for us. And so that would be huge in the play space area as well, like just the sight lines and everything like that are major game changers for us.
so just so that I'm clear in terms of what, if anything, needs to happen now in order for us to move forward on schedule and take advantage of the opportunity to be included in this next round. Do we need to have a vote of the trustees to approve that at this point, or do we need to wait for a final report? Remind me the time schedule so that whether this is the meeting where we need to allow for that to happen.
in terms of next steps, Kim, before she goes, and Demetria and I will be working on the library budget submissions and getting you all for your next meeting. for what we're planning for the capital and the operating. So I think all I need is what I think I've already heard, which is the sense of the board is that these 4 lanes that you've chosen in the priority order are accurate and remain accurate, and we can start kind of getting our ducks in a row on the detail side.
I think that's right. I think that reflects all the great work and our contributions. It's consistent with the town's sense of a strategy for moving forward.
I just have a couple of questions before which is about the lanes, actually. I just want to make sure I understand. So the only thing we're committing to is to the sequence of how we are submitting those areas, our tween first, children's second, et cetera,
And the
right?
general
That's-
framework for how they're.
Yeah. So we're committing to that. So we cannot say, oh, now children's needs is a greater need because of X. Can we switch? Is that allowed? Not necessarily, we're gonna do it.
I'll use what Dave always. The capital budgets are 5 years and there's more certainty in year 1 than there is in year 5.
Yeah.
So this year we'll submit for 5 years out, but then next year, if something's changed, we resubmit. And if you reshuffle them again. Yeah, so you're not committing for life, you're committing for the thanks soonest.
Yeah.
You're,
Oh, you're going to stay.
we're definitely on a path though, so
Okay.
and what we can't do is submit for like an outdoor space, right?
Got it.
Because then
Okay.
Dave's gonna say, how does this line up with the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
feasibility study?
I
And
got it.
like, we can't
Right.
make this game.
And in terms of the line items of expenses, which is great to have the different, categories. When we are submitting a capital budget, this is going to go to town meeting, and are we going to have a request for the total amount or each? Because I heard, or is it each article becomes, each expense is an article, right?
No, each phase would be identified. Oftentimes, we supply backup information,
Okay,
and so this would just be backup information. But it does need to filter into forms that Dave.
Generally speaking, you do design in one town meeting and then
Yes.
construction in another. So those are the 2 pieces of the
and
design. and the
that
construction.
would be that these two will be broken into 2, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Generally
got it. So that's probably,
And I should say that in the professional services fee, we did allow some percentage of that to be for borrowing if necessary.
We wouldn't be able to pay cash for this.
Yeah.
So it would be borrowed.
Unless we win the lottery.
yeah, well, this Friday.
No,
Yes,
not-
Kay-
Tonight,
Kay has a question.
I have a ticket. So
Oh.
if I win, maybe I'll come.
Just when we talk about what we want to do, we've been using the term finalize, not really finalizing the design.
No.
Is that correct? Okay, so that's one thing I wanted to clarify. And then, Brett presented the schedule, summer of 25, summer of 6, that schedule that, we're not really, that's.
That's hypothetical.
That's how they did the
Hypothetical.
cost estimate.
Okay.
That's the
I
cost
just want to
estimate.
understand that. And then thirdly, am I hearing that we will be submitting in the capital budget for perhaps for the first phase this year, or that's yet to be decided?
I would expect you would have, yes, you would have some of this phasing in the 5-year capital plan.
That's why we
Yes,
want to
and
get
I think-
online.
I'd make a distinction, departments submit their requests.
Right.
Then when the rest of the budget process plays out, the final capital improvement plan is not exactly what every department submitted.
Okay,
Right, so what
we
we'll
would
be talking
submit,
about.
But we
in
would submit,
September.
it sounds like the teen tween, which was our first priority.
And then you would probably, I would suggest you put them all in as out years. I mean, that's how we
Yeah,
usually show it, or future forms, or
yeah,
it's always good to show what's coming.
okay.
Yeah.
But it's not committing you to it. It's just
Yes.
saying this is what
Yes.
we're doing.
so we submit and then the next step is whether the decision makers in town decide to include it in the capital plan, is that correct? Or not?
It will always be included in the capital plan, whether it's funded in the capital budget for the
Okay.
first year and then the out years.
Oh,
That's
got it.
what we
Budget,
work on
right.
all fall, and the select board approves finally in December.
Okay, I think I'm grasping.
And then in May, town's meeting, that's when we go for vote.
And don't forget, the very important step, you still have to go through the
Thank-
finance committee.
Yeah,
Right.
kind of like think in brackets, but yeah. That's in February.
between December and May.
Okay, well, thanks to everybody for
Thank you.
getting us
Thank
to this place. I've been impressed every step of the way by your efforts and really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Thanks for all of your input. and
Thank
your
you.
effort.
Thank you.
Kate, Katie, Dave, thank you very much.
Hope you get back on track. You're not.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hank.
And then one quick question.
You all.
I'm like, wait a minute.
See ya, Hank. See ya, Brett.
Thanks,
Uh,
Well, I think the hard part is over maybe, and let's move on to the more, ordinary work. I think now, I got excited before, but now I think I can ask for us to approve the minutes. They were not in the original package. I sent an email
Yeah.
to Kim and they
Okay.
came very, very late. They came they came this afternoon. And so, I don't know if you haven't had a chance to read because of that and whether it's possible to approve those minutes at the next meeting if you haven't.
I'm looking for it. I don't see it. You sent it.
So
to me again?
I think, given that you haven't reviewed them yet because of that, unless anybody objects, my
Megan,
instinct
Did
is,
you actually go over them as secretary and?
I did,
You
yeah,
Okay, so.
yes, and I have forgotten to put my signature on it again, but I did review them.
but I don't know, I want to ask people who have not yet
I
reviewed
haven't
it
seen, yeah.
to
I-
approve it. So,
I'm
does
sorry.
anyone have an objection to us postponing our approval of last meeting's minutes, and we'll at our next meeting approve the minutes for that meeting and this meeting?
Motion.
Do I
Move to.
make a
to,
motion for that, Kay?
Yes, I'll move to review the minutes of the January 2023 meeting to during September, July, I'm sorry.
Second,
Okay, I guess I'll go around and take a vote. Kay Hill,
Aye.
Anna Geraldo Kerr,
Aye.
Megan Small,
I,
Erhard Grafe,
Aye.
Jay Fialka, I vote aye. We don't have Rob Pettit and Michael O'Neill with us today, but the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. The director's report,
Okay,
Kim?
yes, so, this past month, Robin held several tech help. Okay. Robin held 7 tech help appointments with patrons this month. We continue to get really great feedback on those, and patrons, often will write an email separately letting us know how helpful she's been. It was really lovely. We recently had a program that Aaron Bassett and Gay Allen Bennett ran, which was a puzzle race program. So basically they gave competing groups the same puzzle to see who could complete it fastest. People loved it. It was very, very fun. Yeah, we got asked if we were gonna do it again, and so obviously the answer will be yes. And Danielle Tawa has been working with Reference as their kind of go-to manager as she's continuing to keep the library technology under control and getting new computers out still and all of that. So it's a big thank you to her because she's doing their day-to-day scheduling changes and things like that. Robin, Aaron, and Gay Ellen have teamed up to manage aspects of the reference supervisor role while we're hiring. We did extend an offer to someone, they verbally accepted, so we're very close to having someone fresh on board. It looks like their start date would be the beginning of September. So that's very exciting. Danielle started the Massachusetts Heritage Responders course, which is gonna give her a better understanding of emergency preparedness, which is extremely important in archives. In particular, and also just being in a building that does have this historic older part of it. Even though that's not where we had the emergency today. So let's see, Erin has reported that summer reading is well underway for both the young adult and the summer, and the adult summer reading programs. Registration opened for both of those on June 1st and tracking began on June 15th. We've had about 74 people registered as tweens and teens. And about 52 people registered for the adult summer reading program. And that was as of like a week or two ago. So hopefully we've got a couple more people, but it's still a great number. The Hometown Weekly ran a very nice article on Hugh Hanley's Circle of Songs library program. We love to see that. It's
We've been
nice on the
getting
front
great press
page.
in the Hometown Weekly.
I know.
Like the library thing on the cover almost every week.
Yeah, it's really excellent. Yeah, we've had 771 children register for this year's summer reading program. And about 62% of those have already began logging reading, which is really wonderful. They've all been really happy with this ticketing system that we're doing, which helps them earn a trophy for their school. So children get 4 tickets for signing up for the program. They get a ticket for each hour of reading that they complete, and 4 tickets for completing the program. And those tickets goes into jars on the children's desk. There's a jar for each school. And so at the end of the summer, we see like who had the most tickets and they get a trophy. And that's a really fun way to motivate kids and kind of also make it more of a team thing, not just the individual competitiveness.
I had a mom tell me that they were trying to help Newman win. So
That's great. Angel and his crew assembled new book displays for the lobby area and moved the old display unit to the 2nd floor, which you can see pictures of in the report. It fits in really nicely between the snack tables. And I want to thank Jenna White and Char Buxton for helping reorganize that new book area once we got the displays built. They look really great. I didn't grab a picture of the new ones, but I think we posted some social media today that kind of showed them as well. And hopefully you've been in and seen the lobby.
They look great.
They look really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very, very pleased. We had a very successful collaboration with the Needham Children's Center preschool this summer. They visited our STEAM Center, and Lucia Dolan did a really great program with them. We've got Circulation and Reference collaborating on some book displays. They've been doing that a lot more recently, which is always awesome to see. They were doing a display called Don't Turn Your Back on a Good Book last month, which was featuring all these covers of books that have people with their backs being shown. And it was very popular. And I think those are really fun types of displays because they're pulling things from all types of genres and whatever. It's not really a theme of the book. And so people get to have that more serendipitous sort of finding of a title that maybe they wouldn't have found otherwise. So that was a really fun one. Right now it's, cooking with local ingredients or local cookbooks or things like that. So circulation staff have been really helping to pull new books off of the new bookshelf as they are no longer new. So finding those things that are, more than 6 months old at this point. Jenna recently printed and laminated and then posted new wayfinding signs in our nonfiction collection. They have really nice graphics on them. And they're fairly, they're good size to the graphic and the text on it. And then in the future, we would hope to add various languages underneath, just as separate signage, but beneath them. And that's kind of made a big impact on the visuals in the nonfiction area and finding what you're looking for, or areas of interest, I should say. Rand Cronin left her role recently. She left a really lovely binder full of instructions for the next supervisor. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Our take and make kits for July were these book on CD mobiles, or wind chimes. And those kits included a lot of repurposed materials that came from the high school. Erin and Danielle worked with the IT folks at the tech department at the school to get those materials. And so it's kind of nice to be recycling. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there to continue that partnership. And Erin also hosted a game day program with board games, card games, electronic games on the Xbox One, and various crafts. She had 13 attendees, and I think that's a pretty good number, but I think not in the summer. We could try this again and it would probably be even more successful.
Matt?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I just want to, this is a long and wonderful list of lots of creative activities, and I just want any staff who might be watching tonight to know how deeply we appreciate their creativity and hard work. It's just an extraordinary effort and really explosion of fun, creative and intellectual pursuits for growth of people's minds. And so I thank you.
I read this and I just feel proud to be associated with the library and all this great work.
One more. The puzzle had, people personally, whoever was in charge of, it was just a hit and people are like, what else are they doing? We're just, I'm like,
Yeah, it's great. They got a lot
Bye,
of really fun
Tom.
feedback from that, and I think,
Bye, Tom.
I think they'll have great success continuing to run those. I think, even every couple months or something. It's always a new puzzle, so it stays fresh. So that's, exciting.
definitely a good.
Yes,
Niche
yeah.
area.
And that was Aaron and Gail and
Oh,
really
wonderful.
spearheaded that. Okay, so for personnel, Megan Saracola has taken on extra hours assisting technical services staff with cataloging. It's extremely helpful. She's worked in a department previously, so she already has a good rapport with the team and knows the work and our different procedures. Kim Regan and Mimi Aziz also were picking up some extra hours and responsibilities, and Manny has stepped up to catalog some additional item types that she doesn't always work with. So they're making things work in the absence of a supervisor. And not just a supervisor, right, but someone who is doing the cataloging mainly. And so they're really filling in so that hopefully patrons are not noticing too much of a lag on materials. But it's definitely a slower time to process these things at this point. We are interviewing folks. I think we have our last interview scheduled for August 15th. And hopefully we'll have someone in there towards the end of September, beginning of October. And as I mentioned, the hiring for the reference supervisor is underway, and we extended that offer, and we're hoping that they're starting within the first week or so of September. And so we'll have names once that's kind of like in writing.
We're waiting for someone to accept the offer.
They've accepted a verbal offer, and then we're just finalizing paperwork. Yeah. Yep. And I think they will be really excellent. They have a lot of outreach background and experience, and I know, that's a major thing for all of us in administration and our leadership team in the library in general, but also it's a very big part of our strategic plan. And I think they will do a great job to get us started with a plan for outreach. As well as, many other.
Sarah's, right? Sarah's.
Yes, in her previous position. And this is my last trustee meeting, no longer likely as of last night. That has all been signed, as you know. And so just want to say I've appreciated working with you all, and I think we've done some really excellent things. I will probably put more in writing because I will get emotional. So I'm gonna move past it. So for gifts, I don't know if anyone had any comments on the gift list, but you'll want to review and accept that or vote, vote. on
Yes,
it.
I think you all see the list, and so I think I'll ask for a vote to approve the gift list. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Anna, thank you. Anyone second?
Second.
Megan beat you to it, Earhart. So, and we'll go through and take a vote. Kay Cahill,
Aye, and thank you so much to the donors.
Anna Geraldo Kerr,
Aye.
Megan Small,
Aye.
Earhart Grafe,
Aye.
me, Jay Fialka, I, and Rob and Michael are not here with us tonight. That's unanimous approval.
Yes. Okay, so building and grounds. As you know, today, again, we had another little leak. I feel like this was the story last time. This time it was in the community room as a result of this really intense rainstorm that we had this morning. Angel and Jada noticed it right away, started cleaning it up, and went outside to unclog the kind of drainage area and make sure that the water was able to flow away instead of pooling up and into that space. Then they were able to shot back all the water, and it wasn't very high. And yeah, it's kind of the best case scenario for that event. No books around to ruin, and we didn't have any programs scheduled in there for tomorrow anyhow, so there's nothing to cancel, which is nice. There is a program in there Thursday morning. We expect it will be dry by then, and if not, we'll move that program into the children's room and might just have to limit capacity for that one day. Over this past month, Angel and his folks assembled those book units that I mentioned. They had a contractor out to work on the fan coil unit inside the Friends room. It feels a lot better in there. It was not pleasant before, where like just down the hall, have been freezing. Yes, so that's great to have that fixed because they're working hard and it's very physical labor in there. They also power washed the Rosemary Street entrance and painted the benches. They cleaned the carpets along the second floor study carrels. The town plumber replaced the water heater on the third floor. And the second floor bathroom is back in service after some on and off there with a kind of a clogged drainage issue. That was, they fixed and then had to return. And that was the cause of the leaking last month into the children's room had been due to that. So that's all back in service.
Actually, today I was there.
Interesting. It was in service until about 2 p.m. today because I heard about it and then
6 p.m.
yeah. So it's kind of, I think, an issue that they're gonna have to keep coming in to unclog or fix. And I'm not sure what is going on there exactly. That might also, I'm wondering if it's related to some of the pipes backing up because of the rain and not washing out as much. So yes, they repainted the reference supervisor's office, so that's all ready to go. And rooftop units have been running well. They're keeping the building cool. We're feeling pretty good about that. And hopefully don't have too much more time to worry about it. Any questions on the building or grounds report?
So the only the rain only affected the community room, not the second floor.
Right,
Okay,
yes,
so it was just that area.
yes. Yes, I know. It's not so bad compared to other parts of the town that had a lot of flooding. Yeah. All right. So
Financial reports, please.
yeah. So we had money that we paid to the Motion Picture Licensing Corporation and money to the Needham Revitalization Trust Fund, which is, the banners around town that promote the library.
They look good.
Yeah, they do. I was noticing them too. Look very nice. We won't have the final operating budget again, because of a couple of things that were still being paid out. So what you see for the budget and expenditure for August, obviously isn't, that's reflected in this fiscal year. We don't have the final end of fiscal year 23 report that we usually give you too. So you should see that hopefully by next month. But Jenna's very on top of it, so you'll get it as soon as she has it.
Thank you, Jenna.
Yes. And then we had some, general spending from the trust funds as spelled out by donations to the PDF, the permanent donation fund, or things that were spent out pertaining to things that have been voted on before by this board. So let's see, so
Statistical report, please. You can
Alright.
have something along recently, I think.
Yeah, so I sent along the CERC report that we had with the original packet, and then we were waiting on one number or two numbers from children's, and so we got those. And I've sent out the new report to everyone. So June circulation increased pretty, a pretty good amount from May. This also included a large increase of digital videos, which I know people have been attentive to before, and so I don't know why it went up quite so much, but it did. It's great. Registrations were also up 78%, which I think is in large part due to all of the visits we did to schools and things like that during the month of May.
Right.
May and June. So I think that was paying off. We also saw an increase in people entering the building, and I'm guessing summer reading and things like that all have a lot to do with it as well. We offered more general programming overall, and we also saw greater attendance at those programs. In the CERC numbers or sorry, not CERC numbers, but the program numbers for children were also higher, increases in attendance and all of that too. So we're doing pretty well. Good trends. Yeah.
Are we, most of the programs are now fully in person, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know of any that are always hybrid, maybe some of the book clubs, but usually it's in person.
That's not.
Yeah, so it's pretty good numbers. Yeah, yeah.
So before we jump forward, I realized I had a question on trust funds.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, Jay, is that okay?
Yes, of course, Kay.
So I realized there's something here that I was a little puzzled over. You probably explained this to us before, but the New Year's Needham program for December 2024, which is not this year, but the next year.
That is pertaining the staff appreciation funding vote, the document that you're looking at. So I'm happy to answer a question about it, but let me just find it in my packet. Go ahead though, sorry.
No, that was, I
That's
just,
not.
well, it says 3,000 for this year and total. Yeah, I'm just wondering what that is. I don't quite get it.
For what, for New Year's?
For the
Eve?
New Year's Needham programs for the expenditure?
This is the fiscal year 2023 planned expenses request.
Right,
And Kay's looking at the hatch fund reference,
Hatch fund. Says for December 2024.
December 2024.
yeah, because we vote in the funds. This is something you've previously already voted upon. The vote that I'm asking for tonight as a separate matter on the agenda is about just the staff appreciation line.
But it shouldn't be December 2023, it should be 2024.
It should be 24, because we're planning ahead, we're committing the funding so that we can commit to them, that we'll have them. Yes, so that's there all the time. It's always a little bit weird. I think we had questions on that last year too, and it is something that's hard to. sort
Are
out.
we doing 2023 New Year's Eve? I don't recall us.
We didn't have one. No.
This year, because we're not having anything, this is.
We haven't heard of it.
So because we didn't allocate any money.
Nope, it has nothing to do with us necessarily. It's more from them.
Yeah,
when
yeah.
They're gonna do it. We haven't heard anything.
So, but if we're putting money aside for the following year, we haven't put money aside for this year. You know what I mean?
We did last.
So we have money for December 2023.
Yeah, we would have the money if we needed it. because it's been approved.
Okay, I don't
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they haven't, so we haven't heard this kind of late.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I mean, since I've been here, they haven't had one because it's all been.
Okay.
Yeah.
COVID, so
Yeah,
Okay.
I
So
would
we-
think if you
we
were gonna hear.
Plan
something,
ahead
it would be
for it.
soon.
I would think so.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Although,
We can ask,
I'll take a look at this too and just make sure that it is actually supposed to say 24 versus 23.
Okay.
But that's not really,
Yeah,
that document
that's
is for
separate.
a separate thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure.
So this, okay.
Yeah, because that is going to old business. I don't know if we're,
yes, we're ready for old business and,
so that is what you're asking for.
yes,
The line that's highlighted there is the $700 for the staff appreciation efforts that we talked about last month.
did we vote and approve that last?
You
Or-
voted and approved the amount, and I said I'd come back and just show you where it fell in the trust funds so that you could have an official vote on that as well.
Okay, and so that's what you're
So
doing.
that's what this, yes,
Okay.
so it's just a follow-up to that. We had all the discussion about the staff appreciation efforts. But I didn't want it, I think because it is moving funding within the trust funds, I want to make sure you're.
So then we need a motion to approve the change in the trust fund plan spending to accommodate the staff appreciation effort. Somebody make that motion?
So move
Yes,
as stated.
Anna, thank you. Anyone second that? Okay, thank you. I'll take a voice vote for Kay Cahill,
Aye.
Anna Geraldo Kerr,
Aye.
Megan Small,
Aye.
Erhard Grafe,
Aye.
Jay Fialka votes aye, and again, Rob and Michael are not here with us tonight. Passes unanimously. Rob isn't here, so we can wait till next month for any update on the climate action plan updates. We heard a little bit from from the town representative?
There's been no action, actually. We're
Yeah.
both in the same thing, and we have a meeting next week. So you'll have a report.
Okay, and is there any equity and inclusion resolution update? Anything to talk about with that this month?
Aside from what is listed here, August 5th, about 12 community members gathered in the library. And to affirm diversity of families and diversity of love. That was, and I can send you the
Nice.
information. So, yeah, people did, and it was a collaboration with the Needham Human Rights Committee, Needham Diversity Initiative, and the Equal Justice Needham for Families. And it was well publicized by the Needham channel and Denise Garlic also. So it was just very, remember, we were trying to find a room. And then they just said, well, you know, we're just gonna come and talk, and folks came for about a period of 3 hours. Yeah, so it was very organic kind of approach that this great that the library provided some space there.
We actually had nothing to do with it.
But we was the
So,
gathering.
so I
You
wouldn't
just showed up.
really put it on the report anyhow. and it
Oh, no,
actually
I'm
makes
just sharing.
But it is, I really would encourage the groups to think about the story time that they offered to do on August 5th, and we were not able to do. I would love to see them do that another time. Any other day would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They decided to come and organize themselves.
Yeah.
And, and as I would say, just make sure that they are quiet.
Yeah, which was wonderful. Yes. Which is
For
great.
I used it for an hour. They were there for 3 hours, but
Yeah.
it seemed like there was also a comment that there were books already kind of selected by the staff that was super helpful and very much of a, felt very welcoming. Oh my God, the staff, is already on it. It's like,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah, we have these lists all the time too on our website under the resources for mostly for children. But they're book lists related to, racial diversity, racial justice, DEI in sort of books about families, things like that. And this was sort of in response to rumblings that maybe something was going on where people might want to do a particular type of story time in libraries on August 5th. Needham didn't hear anything about that for us. We didn't have any requests related to that. But these organizations got together and felt like they would want to show support by checking out these materials, and it was really lovely. So it felt good to know that should anyone show up that didn't really love these materials, there'd be people there, which is nice.
Yeah.
But I would love to see them do one of the story times that they talked about some other times too.
What kind of story time?
Featuring books about LGBTQ plus families.
Okay.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, or anything like that, just acceptance, things like that. We're always really excited about that. Yeah.
Okay, so anything to report from the library art and exhibits committee?
We have not met this summer, but we do plan to meet in September. And in the meantime, there are no changes in the schedule through the end of the year. I'm doing some outreach to a very well-known African-American artist, but I'm not sure it's gonna happen yet, or we haven't received a number, so that's up in the air.
Okay, as far as the MacIver series, that would be Rob, who's not with us today, so we'll hold off on getting a report. And as far as the Friends, usually I have a report, but I don't have anything new to add. I think they might have had this month off in terms of a summer meeting, and so I don't think there's anything new to report. There's a book sale in September. Library Foundation, there's nobody here.
Joan's not here. I'm the liaison, but I have not been able to attend the meetings this summer because of health problems in my family. But they are busy. I've been on their email list, and they're working on their fundraising strategies quite actively. So we're very grateful.
And I know they announced, a very successful sale with the etchings on the balustrade. Pretty much basically sold out for now.
Yes, yeah. I will put in a plug that Thursday at 5 p.m. There's a donor who has named the local history room in honor of his daughter, and they're gonna have a little reception with a plaque and everything.
When is this?
That was, Michael was gonna
Thursday.
be representing. We talked about this last.
Yeah,
we did.
it'll be Thursday at 5 p.m.
That's right, I teach on Thursdays.
Yeah.
Michael is not able.
So that's true. I don't know. Can you resend an email about that so that we can, if Michael's not available,
I could-
identify whether somebody else can attend? I'm not available at that time.
My son's getting married. He's out.
Oh, Rob was, I thought it was Michael.
So maybe it was Rob,
Oh,
and so maybe it's still okay for Rob. Hopefully he's bailed out by then.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. I
can check and see.
Okay. Are there any other final trustee comments before we no?
I do want to say thank you to Kim because I didn't get a chance earlier because we moved on. And I'm really sad that you're leaving. I know that there's some exciting opportunities at your new position. And I wish you well in that, but I've really enjoyed working with you since I started last July. And I think we'll all miss you here in Needham. But hope to see you within the networks of Massachusetts Library going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Earhart.
I'm sure.
And I'm sure Rob also would have had, warm thoughts to share and Michael. So, well, I think on that note, is there a motion to adjourn?
Adjourn.
Okay.
Oh, okay, I was just had a chance to-
Megan seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, Cahill.
Aye.
Anna Geraldo Kerr,
Aye.
Megan Small,
Aye.
Earhart Grace,
Aye.
Jay Fialka votes aye, and again, Rob Pettit and Michael O'Neill are not here. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much, and thanks again, finally,